This is Viterbi Voices.
Coming to you from the University of Southern California, Viterbi School of Engineering.
We're here to give you the inside scoop on research, classes, student life, and so much more.
All of these shared by students, faculty, alumni, and other members of the USC community.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Viterbi Voices. As usual, I am one of your hosts. My name is Paul Ledesma, Executive Director of Undergraduate Admission here at the USC Viterbi School of Engineering.
And hi, my name is Safia Patel, and if you don't know me already, I'm the new host of Season 10. I don't know at what point I have to stop saying new host.
I was about to say, when do you stop saying new host?
I don't know. I think once I've done a month, I feel like I'm not as new anymore.
Maybe when you're back on campus, maybe you'll feel a little bit different at that point.
Yeah, it still doesn't
'Cause I
feel
think
real.
You're still kind of in your summer mode. This is the last week of summer for you?
Technically, we have 10 days left. Sorry, my voice is so scratchy right now, but
Yeah, what's up, podcast host?
I went to a concert and then I kind of lost my voice, and then I haven't been getting a lot of sleep, so I just never fully recovered.
What concert did you go to?
I went to a Luke Bryan concert and then I went to Olivia Rodrigo concert.
Oh, very
Yes,
exciting. Very
very
exciting.
fun,
Luke
very
Bryan
fun.
was at the Forum, right?
I went to the one in San Bernardino, so it was a
Okay.
drive for sure.
Oh my God, yeah.
But it was
No
really
kidding.
pretty because it was like a amphitheater, so it was outside and there was a really nice sunset and there was a big field that a bunch of people were sitting on for the concert too.
That's awesome. You know, Luke Bryan was Becky and her family went to Luke Bryan, and it was her kid's first concert.
Wait, that's so cool. Maybe
Yeah.
I should have hit her up and been like, "Hey Becky, let's meet
Yeah, I
up
know.
at the
But she didn't go
concert."
to San Bernardino, she went to the Forum.
That makes more sense. The other one I went to, the Olivia Rodrigo one, was at the Forum. I feel like that's a more standard concert venue for people that live in LA.
Yeah. Well, it's closer. It's right there.
Yeah, San Bernardino was like a road trip. I could have made it to San Diego in that time.
Right. Now, granted, I said they went to that concert. I should probably check. To me, country is kind of all the same. So I don't know whether she went somewhere else, but I'm pretty sure she went to Luke Bryan. I think that's what she said.
Was
Or
it in
is
the
that-
past week-ish?
Yeah, it was last week. It was
Oh,
last
okay, then
Friday.
yeah, it was probably Luke Bryan.
Okay. This was great. Because I also went to a concert last week. That was last week, though. I
What concert did you go to?
went to Foo Fighters
Oh, wow.
at
How was
BMO
that?
Stadium. Oh, it was amazing. It was right there, BMO Stadium, right next to campus.
Yeah.
So the soccer stadium. And I had never been in there actually, so that was kind of cool. And it was a great venue, and Foo Fighters never disappoints. They did 2 nights. I only went to the first night. I have all sorts of videos, and yeah. That was a long night. We had like an all-day meeting on Friday, and then I went straight into that concert that night. So I was
Oh, wow.
having a hard time recovering on
Were there
Saturday.
any openers for them?
Yeah, I didn't see those. The Hives opened for them, and then some other people that I don't know who they were.
Irrelevant.
I'm
Yeah.
sure they were great, but I didn't.
Yeah.
go.
They probably
were-
killed it.
They were very interesting to my friends and I, and then it was hard because we were all coming from like different parts of LA and meeting like right in the parking lot,
Yeah.
and so it was coordinating all these different people and all these different times and figuring out how to get in because one guy had our tickets, and so we had
Oh,
to
that's the
anyway.
worst.
It all worked. It all worked. It was fine. It was not a big deal, but it was very much like I was done with my like meeting on campus at like 3:30.
Oh,
So I was just kind of like hanging out.
yeah, because there's no point of going home at that point. You just have to walk so
There
close to
isn't.
get there.
There isn't like, and so like one of my neighbors, my friends here who lives in my neighborhood, another dad at the school, he came up and met me, and we hung out for a little while, like had like dinner,
Mhm.
and then whatever, it's a dinner, like a burger, like nothing exciting. I said we had dinner, like, oh, whatever, it's like we went to Rock and Riley's. And it was, I don't know, it's just a long, like a protracted night of like, it was like I was sitting from like 3:30 to like 7:30, like 4 hours to fill of
Oh,
just
wow.
like hanging out. And then we walked over and, went from there. It was cool. Great show though. Great show. I didn't lose my voice though.
Then you weren't as invested in the concert. You weren't getting the full experience if you didn't lose your voice after a concert.
This is true. I mean, I was a little rough the next day, but I didn't lose my voice for a week later. Does that have to do with because you were just screaming your head off at Olivia Rodrigo?
I honestly didn't even think I lost my voice because I was perfectly fine for the next day or two because the concert was on Wednesday and I was fine until yesterday night. And then all of a sudden I woke up this morning and I couldn't talk. And I was like, do I make myself tea before this podcast?
I think you should.
No.
You should have.
I didn't have time. I woke
Yeah.
up like 20 minutes before the episode, and I just like I cannot get out of bed right now. It's not happening.
At bare minimum, like we're done with this, like not for podcast purposes, but it'll
Mhm.
help for podcast purposes, is go get honey and just
Yeah,
pick a whole bunch of honey and like do that 3 times a day. It'll help you a lot. Even like when you have like a cold, honey
yeah.
helps cure
And
you a
I
lot.
want to feel better before I have retreats starting for like USC
Oh,
retreat starting, and I don't
yeah.
want to be sick or like sore throat when I'm with all of these strangers that I'm meeting for the first time.
If you start the semester sick, you're never gonna get better.
Yeah,
So yeah,
absolutely not.
you gotta get some sleep, get some
Yeah.
tea, get some throat coat tea for you.
My first retreat is in 2 days though, so we'll see how fast I can recover.
Well, throat coat tea, lots of water, go from there. You'll be good.
Yeah,
All right,
fingers
let's get
crossed.
to, we've been chit-chatting. We have a whole episode here for you folks. Forgot about that. It's not just catch up with Safi and Paul time talking about concerts. Well, look, it could be. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about that on the back end because I've made an observation recently. This is our third episode of the season, and I've
Mm.
recognized over 3 episodes we haven't talked about something that we almost talked about all the time last year. And I'm going to bring that up. And then there's a lot of updates for admission. There are so many updates for admission that I want to make sure that I get to all of you. So stick around to the end where we talk all about the upcoming season, things that are happening, special events that are going to be going on. But before we get to that, the content, the reason you're here is to hear from another of our fabulous alumni. And this is Shayna Goldberger. Shayna is a graduate of she has her bachelor's degree in electrical and computer engineering, and she has her master's degree in astronautical engineering. She has done some really cool work, all focused on space. And fun recap of the whole story. I mean, she's going to tell you in just a minute, but an East Coast girl who never wanted to come to USC, came to USC, loved it. She talked a lot about her siblings because they went to USC, and that's why one of the reasons why she didn't want to come to USC. And has this whole experience of studying engineering, going to go do some cool stuff, and now working in specifically satellites and specifically spacecraft systems. So let's get directly into that, and we will see you on the other side of that episode.
Hey, Paul.
Hi, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's good to see you.
You too.
What is new? What's new and exciting?
What is new and exciting?
I didn't mean to blow your mind with the first question.
Dive right in. Oh, my dog has come over to say hello as well.
Oh,
so
cool. No
you
worries.
start hearing barking in the background.
Mine's right here too. Mine is right here too.
Oh, good. Do they like being on the podcast?
Yeah, typically it's usually sleeping all day until I start recording, and then of course it's lots of barking, like right when I start recording.
Of
But
course.
so far, I mean, we'll
Of
see.
course.
We'll see what happens. What have you been doing? How's your summer been?
Yeah, I was just gonna say it's been a good summer. I was just in New York last week for a few days, just seeing some friends, enjoying the city. So that was a good time. But
Awesome.
now I'm back. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. I was just thinking to myself earlier today that I am currently dealing with it's like a cyclical set of seasonal questions, right? And so like in May-ish, June-ish, when you see someone you haven't seen for a second, or you're just like having casual chit chat, it's like, oh, got any big plans for the summer? And then you kind of have to go through this question over and over again, over and over. And then right now, the question is, oh, how's your summer been? What'd you guys do this summer? Like it's been a big kind of like what's happening. And I have like no answers to any of these questions. I'm like, I live a very boring life. Like nothing has happened. So it's really not that great. But how long has it been since I've seen you? I mean, it's got to be at least, I don't know, a couple of years, 4 or 5 years.
Probably more. Probably graduated 2018. So probably 6 years.
6 years. Holy cow. You graduated in 2018.
Yeah, that blows my mind too.
Nothing makes me feel more old than catching up with alumni that I think are just not that much old. Like it's just, I feel like you're right there. Like you just graduated, you're new in the field, but you're not. You've done some amazing, cool things.
Oh, I feel like I just graduated, especially having interns in the office now, although some of them internships are ending now and they're all heading back to school. And I'm like, oh, I should be heading back to school too. Like, yeah, it's the end of summer. It's time to go back for senior year.
It's amazing how much you get used to that cycle. Yeah. Would you just had interns? Yeah. So you had interns working for you or working with you?
Yes, we had one on he wasn't really directly with me, but was on, like, his mentor was someone on my team. So he had a few side projects for the program that I work on. So got to interact with him a little bit. And then my intern that was actually specifically mine that I mentored last summer, she came back part of a different team this summer just to get some different experience. So it's been fun to see her again around the office and just catch up and let me think that I'm a college student again.
Given your distance, you graduated in 2018. Given your distance from college and your kind of life in the professional world these days, what do you think is the biggest difference between college students today versus when you were in college? Do you see any difference? Do you see a lot of similarities?
I mean, I think the biggest thing was these people now in college had such a different experience with COVID. And like for some of them now, depending where they are, hit their high school experience or hit beginning of their college experience.
Yeah.
And I think that just changed the whole college experience in ways that I will never understand.
That's true. Wow. Yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Given that was like your first thought, when I was asking you to describe the people, you described kind of what they went through. Do you see that as they are, how has that made them different? Does that make them in general, in your experience, more reserved? Does it make them more of something, less of something?
It definitely makes them more, I think, comfortable with like virtual correspondence. Like we have a lot of teams in my office, and like they are just popping off in all the teams chats in a way that I think I was much more hesitant to interact with when I first started working, and didn't really know the rules of in a corporate environment, like what are you saying on these IMs, and they're just like in their day one posting memes, posting jokes. Wow. I appreciate the confidence, and they definitely bring a new life to it.
Unfiltered text message lifestyles, just like nonstop popping
definitely
off.
Unfiltered. Is what you just said. Yeah, exactly. And even when we have, my work is all in person, so very little like remote on Zoom calls like this kind of thing that I know a lot of offices have moved to. But when we do have bigger all company WebEx calls, so then you've got like 200 people on one WebEx call, it's always the younger employees who are like throwing reactions into the WebEx and the little emojis going off. So it's definitely that kind of ease with and comfort with these like remote interactions that maybe it's more than COVID, but I think it's fully from just they got used to living in a world like that where that's the only way you interacted with people.
Yeah. So they're used to using the tools at the extent at which they were created for, not necessarily how someone traditionally used them for. But do you see yourself wishing that you could be more like that? Do you want to be more like that? Do you thinking, oh my God, am I behind the 8 ball? Or are you thinking, oh, kids these days?
God, I don't want to say kids these days because that makes me feel real old, but I just think it's a difference.
Okay.
Not even not net positive or negative, but just
different,
kind of different relationship with these tools. Yeah.
Okay, cool. When you have you ever had these talks? You said you're mentoring your interns. Do you ever have these talks about the differences of the kind of the microgeneration in between the two of you, and what you like, even just between the two of you, how you both choose to work and act?
Not probably to this extent, but just, because in my head, like I said, I think of myself as their age. So
that's what I'm asking. That's why I'm asking. Like, because like the reason I ask is because I constantly struggle with that in general. I over the time, because my career is dealing with the age group of 18 to 22-year-olds, and so I kind of live in that world every day. And you see the differences of how things work. And in the beginning, it was like, I'm the professional that can speak the young talk, like I understand it, I get it, I can speak their vibe. And I find myself further and further along that spectrum of just saying like, oh my God, these kids, for crying out loud. And a lot of it has nothing to do with like how they think or what's going on, but it's usually how they use some sort of technology. Like if anyone's been listening to the podcast recently, it's brought up now. This is going to be the third in a row where I've brought up my frustrations with ChatGPT. and the use of it to just get
Yeah.
regular things done, like sending an email. Like you don't need to use Chat GPT to send an email. You don't, this idea of like what is critical communication versus what is trivial communication. How do we clarify these types of things? It's just an ongoing thing I'm thinking about a lot. So it's probably more on my head than anyone else's. So sorry, but I was just curious to grab your mind because you're in between the two.
Yeah, and you've got such an interesting perspective of you just keep getting older, but the people you're around
Thanks.
are the same age all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
in the best way.
You just keep getting older. There's the
But we
sound
all
clip. That's how we're
do.
going to market this talk. So,
We all just keep aging.
yeah, no, trust me, I feel it every day. Every day I wake up, I'm like, yep, I'm
Yeah.
older. I'm older today. All right. So let's catch everyone up with Shayna, who you are
Okay.
and where you're from, and tell people your story. Like, well, let's go back to the day. Like, where'd you go to high school? How'd you find yourself interested in this
Okay.
idea of engineering? How you studied electrical engineering for your undergraduate degree. How do we get there? Like, it's a
Did.
lot of big opening background questions, but I think it's a good starting point for our listeners.
Sure. So I grew up in Boston and definitely did not have engineering on the mind, even up to when I was applying to college, which is looking back pretty funny now because I always liked math and science. I was on a math team in high school, which is epitome of being a nerd. And when I started applying for colleges, all I really knew, I didn't know what I wanted to study. And all I really knew I wanted was to be in a city, but still have like a campus feel. And that was my criteria for them looking at schools. Yeah. And I was pretty done with New England weather, so wanted to get out of winter. So, that narrows down the search a little bit. And I have two older siblings who had both, at that point, when I started looking, graduated from, they were both graduated from USC at the time. So I was like, top of list, can't go to USC. They went there. I need to do something different. And that was my mindset going into my college search.
So it was definitely not USC because they did that.
Yeah, exactly. And, we had all gone same elementary through high schools all the way. So I had definitely always had teachers growing up that were like, knew me as, oh, Erica and Joey's younger sister. And I was ready to pave my own path.
Yeah.
And then start actually going on college tours and doing the info sessions, and came to LA. My mom very smartly made me kind of walk around USC just because she realized it was going to hit a lot of the boxes of what I was looking for. And my siblings, obviously, the whole time were like, you got to go to USC. There's nowhere else. Did it. Started thinking about it, from my own frame of now I could actually compare it to some of the other schools I was seeing. Realized, oh, maybe I do actually like it. Maybe it is actually big enough that it wouldn't just be, oh, I'm following the same path as my siblings. And then ended up getting invited for the scholarship interview. So you come back and do that like overnight stay. Mm-hmm. And that was really where it all switched for me, because then I could like spend a night. You're on campus, you kind of feel like a student. And I was like, oh, this place is very cool. And as I was getting further into like thinking about college and looking at course catalogs and getting a little more serious of like, what the heck am I going to study? Realizing that being at a place where I could really study anything, feeling so undecided at that point too, I was realizing how important that was going to be. And yeah, so that was kind of how I found my way to USC, which now, again, everything makes sense looking back. Like it was exactly where I needed to be, because then when I came in for like that freshman orientation, when you're actually coming in to sign up for classes, and I kind of said to my advisor at that time, I've always liked math and science. There's this like engineering thing kind of in the back of my head, but I really don't think I'm an engineer, but like, could I just take a class to try it out? And they were like, well, engineering, if you don't kind of start and run with it, it's very easy to fall behind. So like, let's give you, freshman first semester, you're taking like half GEs, half major, if I remember correctly. So like, let's just give you the first two that you would take if you were going to be in electrical engineering. And it's easier to kind of move out of that than to try to catch back up into it. I was like, all right, I'll try it, but like, we'll see. I'm definitely going to switch. And I'm going to be one of those people that's like tried every school. Mm-hmm. And then like my first day one intro to electrical engineering lecture, professor talking about his research on devices that are like implants to repair vision for people who are losing their vision. Mm-hmm. It's like a little camera that was sending the right signals back to the brain and restoring vision. And I was like, whoa, this
That's
is
cool.
very cool. And that was just kind of each semester, I kind of kept waiting for my like moment of, I hate this. I'm not an engineer. What am I doing? And it just never came. And I kept really liking it and finding more and more things that I was interested in. So in my head, I kind of like stumbled into engineering, but I think it was really always there from the beginning.
Hey everyone, Brooke here from Viterbi Admission. If you are planning on applying to fall 2025 as a first year student, listen up. I suggest that you come to one of our events to learn more about our programs. Write this down, viterbi.link/events. That's viterbi.link/events. We will be hosting events on campus, around the world, and virtually. If you can't come to us, we will also be coming to you. If you live in Dallas, New York, Seattle, we'll be visiting over 10 cities in September and October alone. So check out the schedule and register at viterbi.link/events. We hope to see you soon. Now back to the podcast.
I'm curious that even in your recalling of this story, there's a lot of self-doubt that you keep reflecting on over and over again. Like you've done it like 3 times just in that little story. Like, well,
Yeah.
I'll do, I know I'm not going to do well in it, or I know I'm going to change my mind, or pretty sure I'm going to like get out of this. I'm not going to like this next week. Like are you aware of the fact that you just kind of did that? And is that something that you reflect on a lot?
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely, and I think I still do to now, like, what's your 5-year plan? Least favorite question. I don't know. I'm going to be in 5 years. Oh, there's my dog.
There you go.
I don't know if you can hear that.
Yeah, it's okay.
But just always trying to try the next thing of like, well, this seems interesting right now. Let's see where it goes. I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know if I'm going to like this a year or 2 from now, but it seems interesting now and let's try it. And that's kind of, I can see that now. That's kind of how I've approached everything, including into my career. And it's worked out so far. But that's why then looking back, everything always makes more sense that like, oh yeah, that was the right choice, or that was a good thing to try, because I am interested in these things. And that's what kind of brought me, circumnavigated this way over here. But yeah, I think you did hit on a core theme.
But do you think that is, because this is something we've talked about with a lot of other alumni, and I think it resonates a lot with students that are going through our program or about to go through our program, which is that it's probably an over-discussed topic at this point, but the concept of imposter syndrome. Do you think that you had that, or you continue to have that, or separately, is this just kind of a way of managing the possibility of disappointment in the future? Like, is that your way of just saying like, I'll find success somewhere. I just don't know if it's this. Is that just kind of your being over rational about it? It's not a really good question, but I hope it's hitting on something there for you.
I mean, imposter syndrome definitely resonates with me, and I think always has. And I think I've always waited for like that moment where it goes away.
Yeah.
And yet it hasn't yet, because just every time you think you've kind of figured something out or understand where you are, then it changes. And then it's all new again. And it's all again, oh, am I qualified to be here? So yeah, I think imposter syndrome is definitely real now. I don't know if that's exactly what it was, figuring out like my college path. I think that it was more being non-committal and scared that like, oh, if I'm picking what I'm picking right now is going to map out the rest of my life, and not ready to make that big of a choice, and just wanting to, or just not knowing and being scared that, oh, if I go to this school and I study this thing now, that has to put me on the path for the next 40 years of my life. And being able to realize that, no, you just have to pick the next thing, and then the next thing will come, and then the next thing.
Right.
That's a much easier, for me at least, to grapple with way of approaching these big decisions.
It sounds like you're still having little motivational talks with yourself. I'm like, nope, don't overdo this. Don't overthink this. You just
totally. Absolutely.
Okay. If you could give yourself advice, like let's say you go back to first year college student Shayna, who's dealing with that idea of engineering, electrical engineering. What were the stresses in there and the concerns, and how would you talk to yourself through it now if you were advising and mentoring yourself?
I think I would just encourage myself to be more like pursuing these curiosities with excitement, not fear. And
There you
that
go.
it was a good thing that I had all of these interests and too many paths ahead of me that I wanted to try. And that's a good thing. And that, especially at that age, I can say now, as we've said, we're all aging, but especially at that age, everything is in front of you. And there's
Yeah.
a million things that you can just go try. And especially at a place like USC, which is what I really loved about it, was that, I ended up taking a class in the film school as
Right.
an electrical engineering major because it was there and I thought it would be interesting. So that it scared me, I think, at that time, having so many choices to make. But that's what I would want to reassure myself now, that like, this is a great problem to have.
Yeah.
And that you can just pursue all of those things that spark that little bit of interest, like go after it, don't run away from it.
Yeah. So one thing I often see with engineering students, or just with anyone at this point, is this idea of the amount of information in the world today makes people believe that they're supposed to have all the information they need in order to make an accurate decision. And so I think that and specifically with engineering students, you like problem solving. You're really good at, getting the right answer. And so this idea of what your future is going to be like, it's like you should have the answer and you feel uncomfortable that you don't have the answer. And so that's where some of that stress comes into play. Like, oh, I'm the only one that doesn't know this. How do I figure that out? And I think you laid something out, which is like, be excited about the possibilities. And these things are like, you're going to see what's going to happen and it's going to be kind of cool. And you don't know what's going to happen because it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah. I think that's so true. And especially that wanting to approach everything from a like logical place that,
Mhm.
oh, this is X, Y, and Z, so I have to go do this. Instead of it being, oh, there's a million pieces of information and factors throwing at me right now. Like you just have to kind of go with your gut at some point, that there's not going to be an exact equation or prescribed way to approach these kinds of choices. And that is scary when you're someone who wants there to be, the right way and the wrong way, that there isn't one. And it's just the way you choose.
When you're coming off the math team in high school.
Yeah, exactly.
So one thing I think we kind of skipped over a little bit is you're looking at engineering and you say you kind of stumbled into electrical engineering, but let's go back up and give yourself a little more credit there. You had a choice. So why electrical out of all the ones? What piqued your interest? What made you look in that direction and step in that direction?
I think it was really looking at, honestly, class names and those what looked interesting to me. And I liked the idea of electrical. You can't just look at a circuit board and see what's happening the way you can, now at the time, the way I thought you could with mechanisms, like, oh, it's right there and you can see the forces at play. I now realize how much I do not understand about mechanical engineering, but that's a side topic. But I liked the idea of, all electromagnetism. You can't see it. So to understand it, it's just kind of a mystery. So that's what piqued my interest, I think, about electrical specifically.
Electrical engineering, or what our school defines, we call it electrical and computer engineering, just in case people get confused when they look at the majors. It is such a broad thing. And whenever you speak to someone who has an electrical engineering background, if you ask them what it is, you'll get up to 10 very specific areas of answers, and then it will dive even more specific on their application of their 1/10 of the area of the electrical engineering, spectrum. And that's a simple definition. But can you do us a favor and help explain what electrical engineering is in the best simple way possible when someone is looking at all? Keep in mind, to someone who's saying, like yourself, I don't know what I want to do. Engineering just seems like something I want to get into. And I've heard some of these names fly by me, but I don't know which one's right for me. Hey everyone, this is Paul. Sorry for the interruption, but I wanted to let you know about a new feature we just unlocked. It's about sending us questions or comments via text. If you go to your podcast player, check the show notes. There's a link there that says send us a question or comment. It may be on our next episode. So go in there, send us a little quick text message. Let us know what your questions are. Let us know what your comments are. We'd love to hear from you. So we can't wait to see it. Now, back to the episode.
Yeah, I mean, electrical engineering at kind of the most basic foundational is just looking at electromagnetic forces, electricity, and how it works and how you can harness it to do what you want it to do. And like you were getting at, there's then a million sub genres of that spin out, that there's people who make, power circuits are different than digital communication circuits, or you think about sending bits really fast through a computer, which is different than people who work on RF communications, or you're working in the radio frequency and things going over the air. And that's where it can, really get deep and niche. But at the heart of it, it's just understanding what voltage and current is, how you harness it to do something that you need it to do. And this is because now, I guess we didn't get quite into my post-college life, but I'm now in a systems engineering role working on small satellites. So I have to try to bridge that gap between electrical engineers, mechanical engineers, propulsion engineers, and specifically worked with our customer and kind of program management and kind of help them understand that what the electrical systems are doing on a satellite, there's, so many different types just on that one system of a satellite, because electrical engineering is so broad. But yeah, I hope that kind of answered.
It does.
My
it does.
definition.
It does. And I let me add a follow-up of a kind of a question part B to that, which is let's also look at a current generation of students going into the possibility of engineering or computer science degree programs. And at most, they're going to have a calculus class in their high school. They're going to have some form of physics. Who knows if it's calc-based physics or if it's algebra-based physics, or maybe it's really advanced and you get all the way to understanding E&M inside of that physics course, electricity and magnetism. But they also might have a programming class. And I'm seeing too many false positives in an interest in computer science, because they didn't have a circuits class. They didn't have a mechanics class necessarily, or the ideas of, or just kind of an intro of mechanical engineering, or anything related to the life sciences and engineering, like biomedical engineering. So I find so many high school students these days that are leaning toward computer science because it's the only thing they see or know of coming out of high school. And I think we got a lot of people that are missing out on all of these other disciplines that they might be interested in, because it is the same basic framework of logic-based thinking, math and science-based problem solving, and then the arena in which you're doing it, or the kind of tangible things in front of your face that you're doing it with, right? Is it keystrokes? Is it voltage? Is it gears? Is it, the human body? Is it all these things? Or what you're getting at, which I love the answer, which is most solutions are systems of these things coming together, right? Like no actual thing is made without all of these things coming together. So that's not really a question, but how do you address a student that is probably thinking computer science because that's all they've ever heard of?
Yeah, that's a really interesting point. I think computer science is now, even just like for the population at large, that's kind of the first thing people think of as engineering, because the tech world has just become so prolific. But I think there's a really nice distinction you can make for electrical engineering that, okay, computer science is great and writing code is very cool, but that only works because you have a computer to run it on. And how does the computer work? How does the hardware work? How do you turn pushing a button into, oh, now I've written some text that the computer understands and can then run some function and output what I'm expecting it to. And that's computer science is super cool, very interesting discipline, but it's like that top layer of the whole framework of computing devices. And there's so much underneath it that has to work just for us to even get to the point of writing code. And I think if that's something that interest someone, but like I'm looking at my laptop right now, like what's in here? What if I unscrewed this? I'm going to see all these circuit boards. What's happening on those? I think that's where you start saying, oh, that's an electrical engineering path. Or if you're looking at your TV, you're thinking, how does the TV signal get into my house?
Right.
That's electrical engineering.
Right.
How does my cell phone, I'm out in the world walking and I'm connected to the entire internet. How does that work? You're getting into electrical engineering.
Do you think it's so ubiquitous now that people aren't even asking those questions anymore?
I sometimes sometimes wonder that,
Right.
especially, talking to non-engineers that really just think about like the apps on their phone as engineering. But even when I was in school getting an engineering degree and it was, oh, are you going to go work at Google or Facebook? And it's like, well, they do have hardware teams now, but it's like, that's not it. Those aren't the only things now that are what engineers do.
It's interesting. Yeah. The brand names, the ever present pop culture phenomenon of technology is kind of an interesting element. Like, I want to study computer science and I will work at Google. Like that's, so where else would I work? I don't understand. That's what I need to do. And not to understand that like all these other things exist. And I want to get into what you do in a little more detail here. Because there's a whole other parallel in the conversation I want to have with you about your career in the industry that you've worked in. But I was going to say that what's fascinating to me is all these, whatever the latest trend or buzzword is in technology, and currently that's AI. So many more kids are coming to me saying like, "Tell me about your AI programs." I'm like, it's not a program. It's AI is an application, end use technology of a lot of other things, including EE, CS, and maybe some ISE and some other elements down the road. And they just think that's what they want to do. Similar to like, I think it was back when you were in school, the buzzword at the time was nanotechnology. Tell me about your nanotechnology programs. I'm like, there's no nanotechnology programs. Nanotechnology is a size that you get to with certain levels of technology, like in chemical engineering or in electrical engineering. Like it's about scaling things down and whether that's appropriate. And there's whole levels of conversation related to that. But AI, or let's put it this way, the most powerful, cool, consumer-facing computer science programs are only as cool as the hardware allows them to be, right? Whether the chip allows it to be. And there's current AI stuff that exists that can't actually run because the hardware doesn't allow it to run. Or there's an article, I think it was just yesterday in the New York Times or Wall Street, I can't remember, but it's talking about how AI is now becoming an energy hog. And this idea of the amount of AI apps running on servers is just constantly pushing the energy consumption to new rates that they haven't seen before. And so now we've got a whole other problem. That whole problem is an electrical engineering problem.
Yep. I love that that's where you went when you brought up AI, because that's exactly what I was thinking, that, everyone thinks of AI as this computer science problem, but it is really a hardware problem at that point. When you're trying to push these speeds and these processing throughput, that's where you're getting back into the edge of it's hardware. It's the hardware that the software is running on is the limitation, not the software. And that's a really interesting interplay that you've got to be an EE to think about.
Got to be an EE. So you, in your time at USC, before we get to the professional stuff, because I do want to spend time there, but I don't want to skip over this, is that because you mentioned this, like as an electrical engineering student, your life was not defined by the term electrical engineer. You did other things. You mentioned you took a cinema course, but like, what was your life like at college? What was USC like for you? What did you expect? What were you surprised by? Even though you were the third in your family to go there, how was it yours? And what would you want people to know about your experience?
Yeah, when I think back on college, the first word that always comes is fun, which people don't always expect from an engineering student, but it really was just a fun time. So like I said, I took classes outside of EE. I was in thematic option, which I assume is still a thing at USC.
Yeah.
So I got to take slightly different gen ed classes, and I was in a sorority, which was a good time. I kind of have mixed feelings about it now, but it was a good time then. And I was part of a volunteer organization that I think is still active called WISE, Women and Youth Supporting Each Other, where we went to local middle schools around USC and ran basically an after school program once a week that kind of touched on themes of identity, confidence, a little bit of sexual education, but mostly just kind of empowerment topics. That was one of my favorite things that I did while I was in school. And I also interned while I was a student, which was, thinking back now, I was busy.
Yeah, you were.
But that was really cool that I had the opportunity to continue internships through the school year. And then I studied abroad junior year. I went to Hong Kong for a semester, which is still something I talk about now. And people joke about people going abroad and make it their whole personality. I think I'm the living embodiment of that.
Everyone is.
But yeah, I think the way you phrased it, that just being an electrical engineering student was a big part of my time at school, but it was certainly not my whole identity at school, which is what I think I was scared of with the thought of becoming an engineer, that was it. Then you're just in the engineering building, only talking to other engineering students, only thinking about engineering things. And that just doesn't have to be the case.
We started this conversation with you saying you didn't want to go to USC because your older siblings had gone to USC. And that's completely understandable. By the way, that is not unique. I talk to students all the time where it's like, no, I'm not coming because whether my older sibling went there or my parents went there, it's like, that is not me. But is it true? Because I'm just going to make a guess that the three of you had very unique experiences at USC.
Oh, we had such different experiences. My sister was an international relations major with a minor in film. My brother was in the music industry program, and now they've both gone on to, my sister works in the entertainment industry in LA. My brother works in the music industry. And yeah, our like academic relationship to USC, so different. But what we did all share, which is how much we loved it and how much fun we had and how we made all of our friends there. And now we go back. And of course, my parents are now big USC fans just by proxy through us.
Yeah.
And we all tailgate together for USC football games. So while I was in it and talking about having, my engineering classes on Friday mornings, which to them was the biggest no-no, that why would you ever sign up for a Friday morning class?
Right.
I was like, well, I don't have a choice.
Yeah.
Felt like, oh, you guys had a very different experience with school at USC. So we all have our little like niches of campus when we go back to, of which parts we know the best.
I find it fascinating, like when you meet alumni from various whatever times or various majors, and you start to connect on, oh, you went to USC? Oh, I went to USC. And you start talking, you're like, you went to a completely different place than I did. And it's not in a negative way. It's like, oh, like to shift the conversation, I get so many different questions from students when they're in the shopping phase of visiting colleges and figuring out where they're going to apply. And most of their questions are kind of, chipping away at what is USC like? What will I find my time at USC to be like? And my typical answer is, I don't know. And that's the cool part about it, is that everybody has completely unique situations. You can be in the same major as somebody and have a completely different experience at USC based on your interests, your personality, the things you try, the things you don't try, how you absorb LA, how you don't absorb LA. Like, it's this really, I mean, I'm sure that even if you just think of people in your classes, they had very different experiences than you did. And they were in the same major as you.
Yeah, totally. I realize I'm nodding a lot, but this is a podcast. So people listening will not see that.
Let the record show that she was nodding through everything. Nodding through everything.
This is my verbal nodding. No, I think that's completely true. And even with, friends who were in different majors, and we would go off and have entirely different days and then kind of come back and meet for lunch in the campus center. And it's like, oh, what's going on in your USC world today? And it's very cool that how many different experiences you can have in one place.
Yeah.
And it's all right there.
Very cool. Now, do your parents still live in Boston?
They have actually moved to LA. They realized once all three of their children.
Oh my gosh. So you all are out here. So they just said, I might.
Not just that, but as part of their move, my mom got a job at USC at the Cancer Research Center.
What? No way.
She is now also a part of the Trojan family. So we went from literally having no connection to this school to her going to USC was our first connection to USC, to now we are like so entrenched in it.
What, when did that happen? When did they move out here?
That was beginning of 2020.
Wow.
It ended up being a really good time to have them out here already.
No kidding.
Yeah.
How, this is a weird question, but how was the pandemic for you? Professionally, socially? Well, I don't mean it to sound light, I guess is my point. Everybody has a different experience, and I'm curious what that experience was like for you.
Yeah, it ended up being interesting timing because I had applied for grad school back at USC, fall of 2019, I guess, is when the application process starts. If I'm not
to get your master's.
But anyway, before
the
pandemic started, I started the process of, I was going to work part-time and go to school part-time to get a master's. And so that was all in the works. March 2020, COVID starts. Thankfully, I was able to do my job fully remotely. So there wasn't too much of an interruption with that. Beyond now, I was working fully remotely. My roommate was working fully remotely. We had, that whole living situation dynamic changed to two people. Now it was our office full time. And then
The bandwidth battle.
yeah, starting school in the fall of 2020. So then most of my COVID experience really was, I would be at work on my work laptop during the day, then I would switch to my personal laptop, go to school at night, do some homework, and then go to sleep.
Was there a ceremonial changing of the guard?
There was. I tried to make it, as distinct as possible as I possibly could in my, bedroom. Yeah. So that's what I think of when I think of COVID, is one room, two very different things going on. And that's when I got my dog. I did get a true COVID puppy because I was working from home, so I could finally take care of a puppy.
Yeah.
But yeah, then it was my room, my puppy's room, my classroom, my office, all in one.
What are any good habits that came as a result of the pandemic? Any bad habits that came as a result of the pandemic that you think about? Like, oh, wow, these are things that weren't part of me before the pandemic.
I definitely got too used to wearing a mask and people not being able to see your facial expression, or like being on a call and people can't see your facial expression. That when I first started going back into the office full time, I realized I was being way too reacting to things in real time in meetings. That was just not appropriate.
I relate a lot to that. To that. Yeah, to share, what's funny is I agree with you on that one. And then number two, which is similar but the opposite, is I've gotten really good at pretending to pay attention on a Zoom call. Because there aren't as many of these that happen, but at the time there were these big all staff calls where there's 35 of you on it, or for whatever, however many it is. Too many to have an actual conversation. It's just where people are giving updates. And so I think I perfected the blank stare and gentle nod, or like the I am listening.
Oh, that's very good.
I am listening, but the like the eyebrow raise, again, not for a podcast, not helpful because, but right, like, oh yeah, that's good. And I'm just
for the record, he's got a great "I'm listening" face going on right now.
Yeah, I think the statute of limitations is probably passed on that, but there was a lot of times where I still find myself doing this. I'll admit, a guilty pleasure of mine. It's become a guilty pleasure, but this started out as what I just ended up doing, because I've found, whether it's age or something else, is that in order for me to listen to something, to understand what's going on, I need to be looking at something else, if that makes any sense. I don't know if that resonates at all, but
yeah, no, totally.
I get lost in people's facial expressions and I start creating my own conversation with what they're saying rather than what they're actually asking. And so I found myself in random, in Q&As when I give presentations, when someone's asking a question, I'll often put my head down and point my ear at them. The point is I'm mimicking, I'm trying to listen to you better. But the point is I'm staring somewhere else because then I can process the question. And it's just, anyway, it's a whole thing that I do. But my point here is a long way to get to this, is that during the pandemic, I would often find myself scrolling through those time lapse carpet cleaning videos, or the time lapse
I love those.
Right? Or the time lapse pressure washers, where they clean off all the mold and the 100-year cottages in England. And I will just, and basically I'm listening to the people that are doing that, but I'm not looking at them. I'm looking at this video and going, mm-hmm. The head nods and oh, that's interesting. Oh, good point. But I've watched so many of those things and they are just addicting and mind numbing to the point of I need my visual cortex to be stimulated by that so that I can audio. It's very much an ADD thing where I need to have multiple things going on.
Yeah, that's so funny. I love those carpet cleaning ones, but to the point where they have utterly disgust me. But I can't look away. No. Because they're so dirty and atrocious. But it's so satisfying when they get clean.
Also, they've done a great job of the first 5 to 10 seconds is an incredible amount of progress. The next 2 minutes is very repetitive, but you're in it at that point and you got to see how it ends. I got to see, is that the cleanest it gets? I don't know. Oh my God, there's another layer. And what is in that solution that was not in the previous solution? And then I have all these other questions and conspiracy theories. I'm did they just get that dirty right beforehand? Did they really just find that somewhere?
Totally.
right? I need to know all the details.
Yeah, no, too many of these look like they were just dunked in mud at the beginning, but there's just no way someone's rug naturally got that gross.
Right.
But hey, it's working. I'm watching. You're watching.
Right. I had a real life experience where my family and I, we moved earlier this summer, and we had these like rugs, and a fight that my wife got into and I got into over and over and over again was whether we're throwing something away or whether we're buying something new. And no matter what you thought one of us was going to land on that spectrum, we were always the opposite. And so that was just, whatever I thought she was going to get rid of, I want. It's just a whole thing, right? Came down to these two very specific like runner rugs that we had in a very specific place in our old house that we're going to maybe use in our new place. And I was like, just get rid of them. She's like, they cost an X amount of money. I'm like, yeah, but we don't, and they're dirty and whatever. She's like, we'll clean them. I'm like, ah. So then we get out there, not with a pressure washer, although I wish I had one, but with this other thing, with doing the same, babies, basically like I've been training for this for years. And this idea of like, I'm going to mimic that same idea of like, I'm going to put the solution on, I'm going to scrub it out, I'm going to hose it down. And I'm like, oh my God, it's happening. It's happening in real life. And granted, I didn't think I ever got to that.
All for this moment.
Everything made sense. It's all happening.
Yes.
Meanwhile,
I hope, did you take a video of it?
No, because I was like first of all, I'm like covered in stuff. We're outside. I'm doing this not knowing whether it's going to work or not. And it worked. And I'm like, I'm not going to take I've beyond the point. I would love to be as in the moment to recognize that I should set up a tripod and film something I'm doing, but I usually don't recognize that till I'm about 3/4 of the way done with something where I'm like, oh, this is actually working. And if I would ever to do that, it would never be worthwhile. So meanwhile,
why I'll never be a content creator.
It's too much work. But those rugs are now in place, and now I'm looking at them going, I think they need another cleaning. Because we're stepping all over them again.
So you've got a second chance here.
Exactly.
Paul rebranding as a carpet cleaning account.
That's it. I'm gonna jump into that space. I'm sure it's not occupied enough. All right, so you get your degree in electrical engineering, and what happens? You go straight to work. Where do you work, and how does that get you to the place you're now? And that includes grad school.
Yeah, so I had interned, like I said, in the summers between sophomore and junior year with my first internship at the Aerospace Corporation, which is here in El Segundo, as the name suggests, in the aerospace industry. And I interned there 2 summers in school, 1 semester during school, and then went straight to work there after graduating in a kind of slightly different group than what I'd interned in. But I joined a digital and integrated circuit electronics department. So really putting that EE degree to good use. And we really were like reviewing circuit board designs from contractors for big government satellites, think like the billion-dollar huge stuff. And did that for 2 years. And that's when I decided I wanted to go back to school, because maybe just looking at circuit boards all day was not what I wanted to do. So went back for the master's in astronautical engineering so that I could get a little more smart on the whole space side of the industry that I was in, and loved that. Like I said, did it through COVID, but Viterbi was all set up to do this remotely anyway. Like I was planning to do it as a remote program anyway. So
distance
COVID
education.
wasn't too much of a hit for that.
Yeah,
exactly. And did that, got my master's degree in 2022. And then that kind of used that to move into the systems engineering role that I'm in now called Millennium Space Systems. Started, I think, about 20 years ago as a small sat startup, and was then acquired by Boeing like 5 years ago now. So we're a subsidiary of Boeing. And specialize in kind of sub 1,000 kilogram size satellites. So think more like mini fridge size. Yeah, it's been very cool. I've been there now for 2 years, and just beginning of this year moved into a lead systems engineer role. So now I'm the lead on one of our programs, which has been very fun and a little bit stressful.
I may have missed this, but I want to clarify to the audience, your master's degree is in astronautical engineering. Can you talk about the differences of going to an astronautical engineering discipline for your master's degree? A lot of people believe, inaccurately, that you choose a discipline and you stick with it your entire time, and they don't recognize how systems and applications of different degree programs kind of start to evolve, and your interests and your career elements started to define that. So why astronautical engineering is a master's degree and not continue with an electrical engineering master's degree?
Yeah, so I was really realizing that I liked what I was doing working at a space company in an electrical role because I liked the space aspect of it. And I liked thinking about sending things into space, thinking about the challenges of electronics, but everything working in the space environment and surviving the launch environment. And that I just didn't have enough of a background in what are those challenges. You know, they would come up in work that you have to, things have to survive radiation, and they have to be vibration and shock tolerant to survive being on a launch vehicle. But, you know, I didn't have a strong enough understanding of those things. So astronautical engineering, which sometimes gets merged in with aerospace engineering, but is different and is specifically about designing for space, not just designing things for the air. The kind of core to that was orbital mechanics. So understanding how orbits work. And trying to think what the other required classes were. That was the main one. But then just more dynamics classes. And kind of, I think I said this before, that like I have a very limited mechanical background. So this was fluid dynamics, were things that I hadn't done in college and kind of just jumped into at the graduate level. But it was a great way to get that introduction to then work in more of a, or to just be more informed for this industry.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was really from realizing that electrical had maybe put me in a corner that was not, you know, I was looking at my coworkers who had done circuit board design for 30 years and realizing that I wanted to think about kind of the bigger picture and the system that these things were a part of.
Yeah, you appreciate that broader approach, but also because you really were into and wanted to continue work in the specific industry and the application of the electrical engineering elements in that industry. And
that's right.
You're working for a subsidiary of Boeing, is what you said, or right, or a contractor for Boeing. I don't know what's the right word. Contractor.
A subsidiary of Boeing called Millennium Space.
Yeah. So
also here in El Segundo.
Right. So I drive by Millennium Space all the time because I live here in South Bay as well. And I always think of the Millennium Falcon when I drive by. Is that just me?
Yeah. No. And I don't think that was unintentional when they named it.
Oh, really? Are you serious?
Not to speak for the founder, but I think that was a heavy influence. It was also, I believe, started right around 2000. So, you know, the new millennium, but it's the space industry. It's just full of space puns.
So, okay, because I make the joke to myself all the time that company's based off of the Millennium Falcon. And if you're telling me that this is somewhat true, I'm going to start telling people this.
Oh, yeah. This is somewhat true.
That's awesome. That's very cool.
Anything that you think might be a Star Wars or Star Trek or any other kind of sci-fi reference in the space industry, it is.
Got it. Okay.
That's who works in this industry. That's what they watch, and that's what they're going to name things after.
Are you on that track? Are you like, or are you kind of rolling your eyes when everybody in the office in the conference room is talking that vibe?
I need to beef up my sci-fi references. There's some that I'm into. I always joke that I saw Spaceballs, which is the satire of all the space movies, before I ever saw Star Wars.
Oh, really?
Those references, and I like those. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know they're making a second one?
There's some deep. I've heard rumblings, and I'm very excited.
Yeah, Josh Gad wrote a second one with Mel Brooks, and I guess they're going into production on it, from what I understand. So.
Yeah, that I will see. All of these, I don't know. I feel like Disney Plus keeps coming out with new Star Wars derivative shows.
Yeah.
I am not up on all of those.
How dare you? They're not derivative. They're extensions of the universe. Come on, derivative.
I'm so sorry. Yes, they're just expanding the authority there.
You're well aware of the intersection that your company lays at, which is like you're at literally on one intersection of two streets. Is Millennium Space Systems, the Aerospace Corporation, and the Air Force, right? That's an Air Force base?
Yeah, the LA Air Force Base.
The LA Air Force Base, which if I'm not inaccurate, that is the only Air Force base in the world without a landing strip.
That's right. That is true.
So fun fact, LA has the only Air Force base in the world without an actual airstrip, which is super cool. And then if you think about it, it's because it's connected to all these companies. As a matter of fact, there's a bridge that lands the Air Force to the Aerospace Corporation. And it's super cool.
I have been on that bridge. That is my claim to fame.
It's super cool. And then my favorite part about that whole thing, one, just the juxtaposition of industry, and it's all right here, right next to the LAX and the South Bay of Los Angeles, and USC's work and the students that work down there and interns and alumni. is the aerospace logo. My daughter and I are driving through there, and my daughter looks up and goes, "Dad, it's the Avengers headquarters," because it looks just like the Avengers logo. I'm like, I bet they would love to hear that, because that is probably super cool because it looks just like it.
Oh, they know. That when I was working there were some kind of internal projects that they were naming after different Avengers
Oh, really?
in an homage to that.
That's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Um,
And I believe this may have just been something someone once told me, but because aerospace is a FFRDC federally funded research and development center, so it is technically a nonprofit institution. They don't have copyright issues with, like, Disney couldn't sue them for that.
because they're not there to make a profit.
Someone with a legal background could certainly
I get
fact check that, but that's what I've heard.
Yeah, yeah, basically. But yeah, so there's that's super, super cool. What,
Yeah.
given the work that you do, I'm gonna guess there's a lot of different, not, confidential, if not top secret stuff that comes across your desk. Let me ask this question, because I know I'm treading on weird ground. Are there things you're working on you're not allowed to talk about?
There are. So if I get a little vague, I apologize.
That's cool.
But I'll let you ask the question and then answer
So,
as I can.
what is one of the coolest things you're working on right now in a way that you can talk about it? Because I'm assuming it's one of the secret ones.
The
If you don't, by the
way,
way, let me give you a way out. If you don't want to, I'll cut this whole question out. We'll go another direction.
No, you're fine. The cool thing about what I get to work on is just we're really pushing the boundaries of how small these satellites can be. So kind of historically, you think about these big satellite programs that are like school bus, if not multiple buses size, take, 10, 15, 20 years to develop, design, build, and get on orbit. We're really more on the like 2 to 3, if not less, cycle for getting things onto orbit. And that's just what's really exciting about being in this, people call it the small sat revolution. And that's really what I was looking for. That I, would talk about when I was in those master's classes for astronautical engineering. We talked a lot about how the industry was changing and that the cost to launch had come down so drastically in the recent years because of SpaceX. And that just kind of changed the whole sphere of now what was even feasible from a financial perspective to put on orbit.
Yeah.
And that is now what I get to work on. And that's very exciting.
That's awesome. How does it come up? This is a somewhat of a popular news item when you start thinking about satellites and space development, but the idea of space junk, the idea that we've just been launching stuff into orbit or near orbit environments for decades now, and it's just there.
Oh yeah, it's just space is really big, and like think of it as just how could it be cluttered because it's just so big, but low Earth orbit is actually pretty small, relatively speaking, region of space that, we start talking about thousands, tens of thousands constellations. It's definitely changing the landscape up there. And there's a lot of, international treaties to try to address that. But I think that's something a space I'm honestly very interested in, just to see how that's going to evolve as just more and more stuff gets launched up there. And, some of it, if it's small enough and isn't actively controlling its orbit, it does just naturally decay and fall back into the Earth's atmosphere and burn up. But right now, that's really only regulated by these treaties that are somewhat loose.
Cool.
Yeah.
I don't know how to just, I'm like, it's like a problem that no one has an answer to. No one really knows how to start to deal with cleaning up. And it's like, we're going to have to deal with it at some point. I just don't know how. And
it's such a, it's the crux of technical problems, but also you get into like government and policy problems and global politics that is a little daunting to think about, but that's what space is. It's everyone.
I kind of draw parallels to the ocean. I mean, like for the longest, we're dealing with these giant trash islands, and because it was, it's so big, it's whatever. And it's like, it's really not that big. And I feel like we like, that's a future to space. Like we got to figure out this, and then we can figure out that. And I don't know, there's got to be some sort of market or company that can come out of all of this, or some sort of solution. I have one
Yeah.
final thing for you. I always end my conversations
Okay.
because I know you've been very, very generous with your time, and I'm running a little bit late. I have a set of lightning round questions for you, but before we get to the lightning round questions, is there anything that you would ever want a student who's thinking about USC and the engineering school to know about? What would you, if you're talking to them right now, because you are,
Oh,
what would you want them to know? What advice do you have for them? They're seniors in high school, they're thinking about applying, or maybe they're deciding they're going to come. What's the one thing you want to tell?
I think, when I think about being a senior in high school, it's a very stressful time. There's a lot of, you've got your current schoolwork going on and you've got all your college application stuff
Yeah.
going on. So
Yeah.
I think the one thing I would want to tell them is just breathe. It's all going to work out. It's all going to be okay. And to try and enjoy it as much as you can, and that you're at a really exciting stage. And whether that next step is at USC or wherever you're going to end up, like, it's just, you're at such an exciting and fun stage of life, and that, try to enjoy it as much as you can.
I love it.
Amid all the stress.
Well, it goes back to the opening part about this is don't try to have it all figured out. Don't think it's going to go badly. Enjoy the experience. Let's see what's going to happen and be your best self, and you'll be fine.
Exactly.
I love the poetry, how we started, how we ended. It tells the story of you, Shayna, and again, just how incredibly proud we are of you and the fact that you're out there doing really, really cool work. And it's always been a pleasure to know you and have you be part of our little family here in the Viterbi School and see some cool things that you're doing. So thank you for doing this. Let's get into the lightning round questions. Yeah. Are you ready for the lightning round?
I hope so.
These are the hardest 10 questions you're ever going to get.
Oh boy, here we go.
Okay, start the buzzer. Here we go. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Coffee.
Say a word in Spanish.
Hola.
Do you believe in fate?
Oh boy, I don't know if I can answer that in a lightning round.
Favorite number?
3.
Who has it easier, men or women?
Men.
Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
I have, proudly.
Name a primate besides monkeys and apes.
Uh-oh. I don't know if I can. Humans?
There you go. Why can't we tickle ourselves?
Because we see it coming.
There it is. What does a person need to be happy?
Ooh, good people in their life.
Is there such a thing as objective beauty?
Ooh, no, I don't think so.
What's the best age?
Oh boy, Paul, I think about that a lot. Whatever age you are now, the best age.
You rolled your eyes when you gave that answer. I mean, come on. All right. If Voldemort offered you a hug, would you accept it?
Of course not.
Is double dipping at a party ever acceptable?
Only if you use the edge you didn't bite from. I have strong opinions on this.
The flip. I bit from that side. I'm going to go to the other side. The flip and double dip. I dig that. You survived the lightning round questions again.
Wow. That was a lot.
Good job. I like it. I appreciate it. Shayna, again, thank you so much for taking your time to share a little bit of time with our audience about yourself and your background. I always think it's helpful for people to hear from people like you. And again, we couldn't be more proud of the work that you do. And again, just proud to say that I know you and that you've been part of our time at USC. I will give you one tiny little memory I have of you. And I don't know if you remember this, but it stands out because it was one of the worst decisions I've ever made in my professional career. It has nothing to do with you. It's just you were there. It's when I said VSAs could wear costumes to one of our events. And it was our big open house. And it happened to be like the day or two before Halloween. And I thought, hey, that'd be fun.
Yeah, it was Halloween.
You guys could wear costumes. And I thought that would be super fun. And then it ended up pouring rain. And it was like horrible. It was like the worst event ever for a number of different reasons. And I realized you guys were all wearing costumes and there was never any context given to our audience. And I didn't realize this till we're halfway through the event. And then we do a student panel. Like I've given a presentation. I said, now let's invite four students up to talk about their experience. And one guy comes up dressed as a banana. Another one comes up dressed as, I don't know, something else. And there's no explanation other than our students dress like this. It was just weird. And I remember you were in an astronaut costume.
Yes,
and
I was.
Now you're working in space. And that's a long way around to get to the point of how cool is this little pluralism. But I remember that day because there was such a catastrophe on so many levels behind the scenes. But I remember you specifically were in an astronaut costume, and I still have that visual.
I do not think that could possibly be the worst decision you ever made. Us wearing costumes made that event so much more fun.
Oh, no. You not part of my decision process. My decision process of making, there's other reasons that I won't say on the podcast why that day went bad, but I just remember it because it was the day that everyone was
I see.
wearing.
It wasn't the costume.
No, it was the day that everyone was wearing the costumes.
Yeah.
And like, yeah. Oh my God. I have so many weird memories of that day because things were just falling apart. Rain was a big part of that. The fact that I just realized I introduced 4 kids to an audience and they all look like weirdos because they're dressed
in costume.
Like literally there's a banana on stage.
I actually, if I remember, I think that astronaut costume won me a prize of some sort. But I don't remember what the prize was, but it was a contest.
You told me that. I said, "Oh, look at this astronaut costume! Like this won me a prize." And it was like the day before, or like whatever the year. Like this won me like best costume at this party I was at. And I was like, "Oh, that's cool."
Yeah,
you were very proud of that. I do remember that.
And now it's I don't know where it is. I lost it amidst all the moving.
It's in the museum somewhere
after college, but I'd love to have it. Yeah, let's say that.
Shayna, that's it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great catching up, Paul.
And we're back. Thank you again, Paul, for that lovely episode. It was really cool hearing about her experience, especially having siblings that went to USC myself. I understand the struggle of not wanting to.
Are you the youngest?
Yes, I am.
Was that a thing for you too? Like this idea of like, definitely not going there because that's their place?
A little bit. I wouldn't say it was a complete no because, again, like we mentioned in the episode before, it was the cheapest option for me. And I was like, yeah. So
it made sense to you. Yeah.
It made sense to go here for sure. And I really liked USC as a campus. Whenever I visited my sisters at school, I loved it a lot. But it was more, I wanted that sense of individuality. And especially when you go to high school at the same time as your siblings, I feel like you lose that sense of individuality because all of your teachers know your sibling.
Yeah.
But
No, I know.
obviously, college is different. I majored in something completely different than my sisters. So I think the only overlap we had with teachers, actually with no teachers, we had overlap. There were some like friends that we had overlap with because my sister and me are really close in age, which got a little tricky at the beginning when I first started, but after it's gotten better for sure.
Okay. Wait, it's 2 older sisters?
Yeah, 2 older sisters.
And one is in New York. I know that.
One's in New York. She's 8 years older than me. She studied neuroscience and business.
Okay.
And then the other one is less than 2 years older than me. And she did her undergrad in communications and then her master's in product management or marketing management.
I'll ask you the same question that I asked Shayna. When you guys think about or talk about USC, do you find yourself having 3 very different USC experiences? Like almost like you went to 3 different colleges?
Honestly, yeah, but I think me and my oldest sister have a more similar experience than me and the middle one, which is surprising. I think it more just has to do with the things we valued in our college experience and our personalities. Because I would say that me and my oldest sister have more similar personalities than me and my middle one.
Interesting.
But we did definitely have completely different experiences.
Yeah,
it's really fun.
Yeah, no, I talked about it a little bit on the podcast, so I don't want to repeat it too much, but it bears repeating to talk about how just in these 2 examples, but I said it to Shayna that everyone I meet that's a younger sibling that usually starts out thinking, nah, I don't want to come to USC, is because their older sibling came and had a very specific experience, not good, not bad, just a very specific one. And they didn't identify with that experience. And then they come and they start to meet people and they realize, wait a minute, I can have this entirely different experience. And oftentimes families and friends and stuff, even like when you start meeting people, this is another thing, I brought up with Shayna, but like, let's say I get into the professional world and you start meeting people that went to USC. And you're like, oh, cool, I graduated this year. I graduated that year. What'd you study? Cool. And then you start like sharing stories and you realize, were we at the same place? Like, this is a very different experience, not good or bad, just very, very different. And it's one of my favorite things because with prospective students they recognize this a lot because they can never put their finger on like what is a USC student experience. They're always like, so what's a USC student like? And I don't really have an answer to that question because it's like, you start thinking about your friends, even your friends, even in the same major, they have very different experiences, whether we talk about belief systems, whether we talk about involvements, whether we talk about activities, whether we talk about just how they like to wind down, whether they go to Olivia Rodrigo concerts or whether they go to Luke Bryan concerts or both. Like it's all very, very different, right? It's a really kind of cool mix. And I don't think, I'm sure that exists at other institutions to some regard, but it is one of, I think, the hallmarks of a USC community is that there's no way to really define it.
Yeah, I think it's definitely a choose your own adventure type of thing. Like definitely what involvements you end up choosing and what even classes you end up choosing, because me and my friends in in computer science, even we have, like you said, we have like completely different trajectories of what our college experience is defined by. And it's really interesting to see. But I think that just makes it even more fun. Like everyone's just
Yeah.
in their own world, but you're all at the same school together and all the traditions still continue on. So you still have that commonality with people no matter when they graduated. And everyone I meet has such like a strong USC pride that even if it's like a completely different experience, you can still
Yeah.
bond about something.
It's funny, as move-in week is happening this coming week, and so people are moving in throughout the next couple of days. And if there's any first-year students listening, I think oftentimes they feel, or even transfer students that are just joining campus, new students, new incoming students, they always kind of feel like the pressure that they have to now start defining who they are over the next however long, weeks, months, etc. But every semester is a new start. People, you do different things at different times. And I'm curious, now that you're going into your senior year, there are certain things that are kind of locked into your identity and locked into like you found your niche and your different groups and your community, your layers of community at USC. But is there anything you're thinking about this year where you're like, oh, I think I might want to go try that? Or like a friend has tried to talk me into going to this one thing and I've never done it. And this is kind of the beginning of two things. One, how do you think you might want to shift something up this year? And two, something I was asking Maya a lot last year, I'm going to ask you is, what's on your senior year bucket list?
I remember this question. I feel like mine was so much more defined than mine. Maybe I need to go back after this
Well,
episode and make a list.
it's the beginning. We can start thinking about it now. So off the top of your head, what sounds like something you haven't done yet? You got this last year.
This is not specific to USC, but just because of the location, because I grew up in Orange County, I feel like in my head, I'm like, oh, I know LA. I know the area. But after having friends that live there post grad, I really don't know the area at all. I
It's
have
too
not,
big.
it's huge. Every neighborhood is different. There's so much to do. And I want to explore Los Angeles the way that I explored New York this summer.
Got it.
Yeah, that's my goal. I just really want to, when someone comes to LA and they're asking me for recommendations on what to do, I want to be able to give them a greater scope than just the
Okay,
USC
so right
area.
now, when someone does that, where do you tell them to go hang out? What's a place you like to go? And I'll give you a different one.
I usually tell them to go to like Silver Lake Flea or Rose Bowl if they're into thrifting. Restaurant wise, I usually just ask them what they're craving and then give them recommendation based on that. So if they're like, oh, I like Taiwanese food, I'm like Pine and Crane because that's what everyone at USC goes to. If it's like dessert, Okobing. I've really been into like seafood, like Crab House in LA is good. I'm usually just restaurants and then like Viewpoint and then maybe an activity. So like thrifting food and then like go to Elysian or Griffith or something for like looking at the view of LA.
That's cool. Have you ever done like just walking all the shops on Melrose?
Yes, that was fun. I did that very early on because I feel like the
It's
people
an
that,
easy go-to. Yeah.
yeah, like you can just park, walk around. You're gonna have a good time no matter what.
Okay. And then obviously like there's just Hollywood in general. Like there's just like hanging, like it's weird. It's very touristy, but there's some cool like little hidden gems inside of that area. Have you done Hollywood Bowl?
I've done like a Hollywood hike and then I've done that area a
No,
little
going to a
bit.
concert at a Hollywood, at the
Oh,
Hollywood Bowl.
yes, I have, but that is a hike. Getting to the top of
Oh,
Hollywood Bowl.
it's rough. You're like, cool, we're going to a concert. Wait a minute, I'm hiking. I have to go
Yeah.
all the way up here.
It was a really fun concert venue because it's also outdoors and it's
Yeah.
huge. There's so many
Yeah.
people.
Yeah,
It
going
is a
there,
fun experience.
or a concert at the Greek. Have you been to the
Yes.
Greek Theater?
I'm
Oh
a
my
big
God.
concert goer, so I've done a lot of the LA venues.
Okay,
Like I've
great.
done the Novo, Bank of America, Staples, or not Staples Center. What's it called now?
Crypto.
Yeah, crypto. Hollywood Bowl, like all of those.
Downtown, there's some great restaurants on 4th. And then obviously the Arts District has a lot of cool stuff out there, which
Yeah.
if you haven't checked that out, that's a great little like, let's just go wander and find where we're going to go or pick a place to eat at and then wander around afterward.
I would also say go to the Flower District one morning, like really early on a Sunday morning.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, that's fun.
That's good
It's
stuff.
right next to the Arts District, kind of, so you can just do both in the same day if you want.
Have you like just walked through Larchmont?
No, I haven't. I should do that.
That's a great weekend activity.
Yeah.
A lot of just easy little cafes. There's a pizza shop that's really, really great there in Larchmont.
What's it called?
I think it's just called Larchmont Pizza.
Oh, okay,
It's like
perfect.
directly in the middle. Like it's because it's one street. It's obviously like the wealthiest community in the world of Hancock Park, but it's a cool little just like area to hang out. And as you know, in any little niche area of LA, there's always a Salt and Straw, and there's a Salt and Straw there too. It's just like road detail or downtown LA at the Row. There's some cool stuff down there. And Santa Monica, there's cooler parts of Santa Monica than the Promenade, but like near like Montana, over there is really, really cool. And then Culver City is pretty great as well if you haven't been to Culver City. And then like Tito's Tacos. Have you ever been to Tito's Tacos?
I haven't.
Got to get a Tito's taco. It is it's a fun time on a weekend. They say, the only thing better than a Tito's taco is two. It's their
Wait,
ad
what? Can
campaign.
you repeat that? What?
The commercial they run on local TV for years is they have like a jingle, and the song is the only thing better than a Tito's taco
Oh,
is two.
I get it now.
Yeah, I
All I
know.
heard was two, and I was like, what is he talking about?
Two Tito's tacos. You got now. I'm just getting hungry trying to figure out what I want to eat today. Where we're gonna go.
That's another thing. I want to go to a lot more restaurants in LA. I feel like I was a little lazy last semester. I just went to the same ones over and over again. But I just have a bucket list of all the places I want to go for restaurants wise.
If you go up Vermont,
Mm,
like closer into like Koreatown, it's a chain of like these like cheap Thai restaurants.
mm,
And I don't know if it's still there, but 20 something years ago, I would go all the time. And it's called Thai Ocha.
mm.
And they have a lunch special that was like so cheap, and you just like pile the food on, and it was just amazing. And like just like, and they also do a bunch of, if you like seafood, they would do a bunch of like seafood tower type situations, like those Thai big bowls of
That sounds so
seafood
good.
crab, stuff like that. Can't claim whether it's still there or whether it's still good, but it was like cheap, and it was a really cool kind of experience. And then I always tell people about Zanku chicken. You've been to Zanku chicken?
No,
Oh,
this is just making me feel even worse,
oh
Paul.
my God, Zanku chicken. It's a Glendale thing. Obviously, the larger Armenian population that moved to Glendale and kind of
Mhm.
settled in Glendale. There's a chain of restaurants like a shawarma, but not like it's that type of chicken. Like it's a rotisserie style
Mhm.
chicken with the garlic base. Zanku chicken. There's one in Hollywood. There might be one closer now. They have a couple different areas, but in East Hollywood, Little Armenia, there's a really kind of cool, awesome area to go check out. It's just to get the food. It's really great. Zanku chicken is fantastic.
I'm gonna need to get a list from you after this episode. Just
Yeah.
all of Paul's recommendations. Maybe that should be a blog post. What Paul recommends to eat in LA.
Well, I've recognized that I'm so old. I don't know whether some of these places still exist. So I give that sense of like, if this is still there, because who knows how much it changes.
Yeah.
The last place I'll give you, it's pricey. And it's a place like have your parents take you if you've never been before.
Yeah.
Like if you want to set up a dinner and make a reservation for a place, it's not like amazing food. It's an amazing location with an amazing view. And that is Yamashiro. Have you been to Yamashiro, which is right on a hill right above Hollywood Boulevard? And there's a whole story to this that you can look up in 1920s Hollywood about these brothers building their house, and they wanted to be inspired by Japanese architecture. So they built this like perfect Japanese pagoda style house with these Japanese gardens that are out. It's a Japanese restaurant, sushi, etc. And but you're looking at like all of LA while you're sitting there, and it's like the part of the restaurant is the courtyard with like a big koi pond in the middle, and you're just kind of like hanging out there, and you can walk the grounds while you're waiting for it's amazing. Yamashiro is a great place.
I'm taking notes right now. Don't worry.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's an experience, and it's not like you're not going to walk away going, "Oh my God, that was the most amazing meal ever." You may, but it's much more like, "Oh, that was a great experience," and it's a cool go-to Hollywood type experience. Anyway, so we had Shayna. She was great. I'm really glad she's on. I hope that helps everybody. The admission updates. Let's get to that. First off, the website that you want to go to is viterbi.link/events. Viterbi.link/events. You will see that over the next couple months, we are holding a lot of events. First off, we continue to do on-campus events on most Mondays and Fridays in the fall semester. Every once in a while is occasional Wednesday, but we'll do Mondays and Fridays, and that's a great way. The best way to visit campus is the Visit Viterbi experience. Come to that. You're going to get all of your questions answered. We run usually one morning session and sometimes an afternoon session, depending on demand. So just check the calendar. The availability is always changing, but make sure you get into that as best as possible. Then we're going to have a bunch of different events worldwide. We'll start off in events in India, Mumbai, and New Delhi. We'll have events in Beijing and Shanghai. We'll have events in London. We'll have events and then across the country, from Honolulu to New York and everything in between. We've got Boston, we've got South Florida, we've got Atlanta, we've got Dallas, we've got Houston, we've got Chicago, we've got Seattle, we've got the Bay Area and San Francisco. And did I hit all of them? I don't know. I think I'm doing this from memory, so I'm not reading it right now. But basically, we're all across the country in kind of large demographic centers. If you are near there and you want to come check us out, please register. Check out the website. You could register to do that. Oh, DC, I forgot about DC. We'll be in DC and Philadelphia as well. So if you're there, please register. We'd love to see you. Some of you can't necessarily visit campus, and we get that, or it's not convenient. So we want to make it convenient for you. So we come out to you. We bring ourselves to you. We will be flying out to each of those cities as part of a larger university group, talking about the university in general, the admission process, financial aid, and then the engineering school. Myself or one of my colleagues in the school will be there, and we'll be chatting with you about it. We'll be able to have a whole separate session about the Viterbi School of Engineering and about computer science and about helping you understand what this place is all about. So we want to make sure that you're getting all those answers. Then on Sunday, October 20th is our largest event of the year, which is the Discover USC Open House. And as part of the Discover USC Open House, we are having our large Viterbi Expo. So we'll have some large keynote sessions on the admission process. We'll bring out a lot of our student organizations for you to see. We'll bring out faculty for you to meet. It's kind of like a cool fair that an open house that you can explore the entire university. And we're going to bring as much as we possibly can about the school out there. And there's even new upcoming live events that will be happening with students. So students like Safia and all of her friends and colleagues, they're going to put together a number of different student chats that will be together. That will be on our website just shortly. Probably by the time you listen, it'll be up there. And you can register for those different elements and chat with people based on different interests, based on different majors, and hear from student panels and ask them questions about what life is like at USC. There's just so many different ways that we want you to engage with us if you are interested. And so if you want to learn more about the school prior to applying, or if you're not sure you want to apply, you want to learn a little bit more, we recommend coming to one of those events, whether it's a virtual event, whether it's our in-person event here on campus, something near you, whatever works best. Don't think that you're supposed to hit all these up like you're getting points on your application. We want to make sure that we recognize that there's no such thing as demonstrated interest, and so we're not tracking your attendance at these things necessarily and then saying who likes us more. We're putting these out here for your benefit. So if you have the interest that you really are, want to learn more, that's why we do this for you. So we're here to answer your questions and help you understand what this place is about. So viterbi.link/events, viterbi.link/events is the website you want to go to. And then we can't wait to see you. That's really it. I don't know. Sophie, do you think I missed anything? Anything else we should talk about?
I think you covered everything. If anyone's coming to an information session 3 to 4:30 on a Wednesday, I'll probably see you there. So excited to meet you all.
Oh yeah. So the session starts at 2:30.
Yes,
But
sorry.
you're working.
I'm there from 3.
Yeah, you will be there on most Wednesdays, is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Wednesdays are rare, just as a heads up. But they are rare. But hopefully, you can meet Safia. And how cool is that? Get her signature, take a selfie with her. It's all good.
Oh, of course, yeah.
All right. Well, with that, I think we had a pretty long conversation there. Oh, this is what I was going to bring up.
Mhm.
It's 3 episodes, and we haven't mentioned Taylor Swift. Is that because Maya's not here? Is that what the issue is? Because
I think it is. I'm not. I wouldn't say I'm a big Taylor Swift fan personally.
That's fine. No, I recognize it. I'm like, it was such a prominent point in conversation last year, and it just isn't this year, and that's okay. I'm not asking for it to be. I just recognized it.
Yeah, I don't know if it'll really ever be a topic of conversation for me
The facial
personally.
expressions you're making are probably the best thing ever. So I'm glad to hear it. All right. As we said, everybody has different experiences at USC.
Exactly.
All right, everybody. Thanks for joining. We will see you next week with another episode of Viterbi Voices.